Reason Podcast does not believe in curses and is unconcerned with what offends you. We do not believe that words have the power to compel spirits or demons to affect your life in any way. If you do, well, there is a reason why the explicit tag is there.
Listening to Reason Podcast. Reason. To think, understand, and form judgments by a process of logic.
Hello, and welcome to Reason. Today is Sunday, January 13th, and this episode is entitled Miss New York Won the Miss America Pageant. Thank the Lord that New York is finally getting the recognition it deserves. Now we can all die happy. I'm Joshua Billingsley, along with Paul Whitmire.
How you doing?
And David Ward.
Which Lord?
Indeed. And this podcast is coming to you live from sunny Buffalo, New York. Reason Podcast is a weekly discussion of events, current and historical, from a skeptical, a rational, and a non-theological perspective. Reason Podcast is brought to you by the Offensive Atheists and the atheist community of Buffalo and Western New York. For further information, please visit our blog and website at wnyatheist.org or email us at reason@wnyatheist.org.
Philip A. Hart versus the Cult Awareness Network is a court case that was in the California court system, and then the actual specific case I'm going to be discussing here is from the Court of Appeals of California, 2nd District, Division 7. Now, it says Philip A. Hart versus Cult Awareness Network, but what we're actually talking about here is Scientology.
The Church of Scientology.
The Church of Scientology, which is not a church or a religion or
science-y at all.
Well, yeah.
Or ologistic.
So Philip A. Hart is a member of the the Church of Scientology, and he apparently is one of a number of plaintiffs who sued the Cult Awareness Network because the Cult Awareness Network would not let members of Scientology join the Cult Awareness Network.
So douchey of them. It really is.
Yeah.
Those are the people that are most aware of cults.
Yeah, they bring all the information. Here's how we do it.
Yeah, there you go.
Like that book that OJ wrote, like, if I did it, that would do, if we were a cult, we would do this, which we don't do.
We're not a cult.
Not a cult.
We don't do that at all, but we would do this, and you write this down. Things like that.
Yeah, let me show you how an e-meter works. Not a cult, though. Okay, so this is the appeal filed by Philip A. Hart and the Church of Scientology. And one of the ways that you can tell that this is not simply some guy named Philip A. Hart, plaintiff and appellate, because the counsel for Philip A. Hart, the plaintiff, is 2 law firms and 7 lawyers deep. So
he's a wealthy person who wanted to join. That's all. 7
lawyers to the Cult Awareness Network's 2 lawyers. So somebody had some money on the whole thing. Now, this is an interesting court case, and what ultimately happened with the Cult Awareness Network because of this is also quite interesting. But the deal here is that the plaintiff, a member of the Church of Scientology, appeals from an order denying a preliminary injunction against defendants to, quote, cease refusing membership in the Cult Awareness Network and the Cult Awareness Network Los Angeles on the grounds that it violated something called the Unruh Civil Rights Act. Now, the Unruh Civil Rights Act is specific to California, but pretty much all states have something similar. It basically says that you can't deny people admission to what is an open group, a business, an organization that's actually for profit or whatever, on the basis of sex or race or religion.
Any of the protected groups.
Right. And the thing about the Unruh Act, which was enacted in 1959 in California, is that it specifically has an exemption for not-for-profit organizations.
Right.
And the reason why it has that exception is because, for example, the Catholic Church.
Yes, Mother Cathol.
You can't sue the Catholic Church for refusing to admit members of Islam or Jewish members into the Catholic Church.
So do you know Hasidic Jewish Catholic priests?
As far as I know.
Okay, that's good to know. Good to know. Keep that. At least not in California.
But so here's the thing. Now, several cases, in addition to the wording of the actual text that was put into law in 1959, several cases throughout from 1959 to 1993, where this court case started, actually further substantiated and laid down precedent to say, if it's a nonprofit organization, you can't apply the Unruh Civil Rights Act. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of well established in the law. Now, again, profit organizations you can sue them if they violate the Unruh Civil Rights Act. And one really interesting example is a case from 1985 called Coyer versus Metro Car Wash. Now, Metro Car Wash is a bar. I don't. They apparently named a bar.
You tell your wife you're getting the car washed, and you go get shit-faced. That's the whole premise of that bar.
Now, here's the deal with this case. I just want to talk about this briefly because it's so entertaining to me. In this case, the bar, Metro Car Wash, was a for-profit establishment and therefore falls under the purview of the Unruh Civil Rights Act. And whoever this Coyer guy is, he sued them. Now, what was the reasoning behind suing them? Well, he was apparently upset that this bar had ladies' night where they gave women free drinks.
Which I've actually also always had a problem with, but then it gets a bunch of drunken women, all around the bar, and who can argue with that?
Yeah. So he sued them, and he was actually successful, and he won a monetary award, and the bar was no longer allowed to give out free drinks to women, unless they gave them out to men as well, which they didn't do. They just stopped giving out free drinks.
Well, that makes sense.
So I imagine that this guy, there were probably a fair number of people in his immediate vicinity who were pissed at him about this whole deal.
One would imagine.
You know how we used to go to the bar and the women were drunk and they would have sex with us? That doesn't happen so much anymore.
Yeah, fuck you, Unruh.
Yeah, seriously. So, okay, but again, the Cult Awareness Network is a nonprofit corporation. Its purpose is to educate the public about the harmful effects of mind control as practiced by destructive cults. Membership in CAN National is apparently, according to their charter, open to individuals without regard to race, religion, or national origin, which kind of goes counter to refusing members of Scientology admission, but it gets a little bit more complicated here. So, in September of 1991, there is apparently a magazine, at least in California, called Business Link, which is a publication of the Better Business Bureau serving Southern California. And in Business Link, they had an article exposing what is the Sterling Management Systems, a Glendale, California consulting and training business, as but one of many of Scientology's cult's front groups. Mm-hmm. So, and they list some of the practices of the cult of Scientology and the Sterling Management Group and all these different front groups, saying that they have the characteristics of cults. They discourage family life and normal childhood behavior. They isolate children. They require children to participate in endless rituals, excessive meditation, or to work tasks inappropriate for their age. They restrict the diet of children, and discipline may be excessive, according to this magazine article. So, it's for those reasons, the Cult Awareness Network considered Scientology a cult, and therefore barred members of the Church of Scientology from joining the Cult Awareness Network. Now, to substantiate its nonprofit status, it's important to point out that the Cult Awareness Network has no paid employees and owns no tangible assets of any kind, or at least they did not at the time of this court case. They sell no products, and they offer no services of any kind. In fact, they basically, the Cult Awareness Network was just a bunch of people who met in one of the Cult Awareness Network members' kitchens, like once every other month.
Right, and they mostly got together and wrote books and wrote magazine articles and things like that. That's mostly what they did.
Right. And so Scientology apparently decided to pick a bone with the Cult Awareness Network. Now, this happened way before this court case. What happened, beginning in 1991, what is her name? I just had it, and I lost it.
Is it Gloria Stefan?
No, it's...
Never Gloria Stefan.
It's Coates. Her last name is Coates. I just can't find her first name, but that's not important now. So Coates is the head organizer of the Cult Awareness Network, or at least was at the time in 1991, and she received a total of 486 letters from acknowledged Scientologists requesting to be admitted to as members of CAN, the Cult Awareness Network. The letters were remarkably similar in composition, And Coates believed that the campaign of letters from Scientologists professing their desire to join CAN was designed as a harassment measure against CAN. And that's kind of further substantiated because this happened actually, the 486 letters came from Scientology in July of 1991. A couple of months previous, in February of 1991, the Church of Scientology identified CAN as a suppressive group. That is, the church literature defines suppressive group as, quote, one that actively seeks to suppress or damage Scientology or a Scientologist by suppressive acts. Now, if any of you are not all that familiar with Scientology, one of the hallmarks of Scientology is that they have their own language and words mean different things.
Newspeak, yes. And
they use lots of abbreviations. And it's and that's one of the hallmarks. I know Josh is going to get into this as he talks about cult later on the show, but one of the hallmarks is changing, one of the ways to brainwash people is to change the meanings of words.
You change people's vocabulary so they mean different things. It provides a private language and, provides different meanings to everyday words. It's tricky language to change the way you think.
Right. So the Church of Scientology labeled them as a suppressive group. Now, what that means is that according to the tenets of Scientology, any group that is a suppressive group becomes, quote, fair game. Fair game is a person or group which is fair game may be deprived of property or injured by any means by any Scientologist without any discipline of the Scientologist. They may be tricked, lied to, or destroyed. Yeah.
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah, it's absolutely reasonable. I know you've been gone for a while, but you should probably talk to Mike.
Oh, yeah.
Aha. See that thing
Mike,
up
wait,
at you?
Are you guys recording this? Hold on. What's going on?
So, yeah. So this thing, in February, they declared them as a suppressive group. In July, they sent them 500 letters. And so it's because...
Purely coincidental, I'm sure.
It's because of that they denied membership to the Cult Awareness Network for any Scientologists. Now, the reason why the Scientologists, according to the court case, the reason why they wanted to join the Cult Awareness Network is they wanted to voice their side of the story of Scientology. And they wanted to do so. They wanted to join Scientology, and they declared that they were not going to change or alter the Cult Awareness Network in any way, and that was not their intention at all. They swore in open court, quote, I am not now a member of a destructive group, and I will promote the principles of CAN National and CAN LA. I will not use any information I learn to harm CAN National or CAN LA or its members. So their intention was not to fuck up and destroy the Cult Awareness Network. They just simply wanted to join, get on the inside, and explain that Scientology is not a cult.
Sure, seems perfectly reasonable to me.
Probably vehemently.
Yes.
So
and disruptively. And destructively.
Yeah.
And repetitively.
Now, when they were denied admission, they sued, and their basis for the lawsuit was, again, this Unruh Civil Rights Act, which is interesting because in this particular case, the Unruh Civil Rights Act is just across the board known not to apply. They're a declared non-profit group. They have a not-for-profit incorporation. The Unruh Civil Rights Act has been, there's precedent after precedent that says it does not apply to not-for-profit groups.
Fuck it, we're Scientologists. We'll sue.
So basically they're suing here as a harassment technique. And after they lost the original court case, then they appealed on the same exact basis, which, of course, that's what this case is, and the judge just flat out just rejects the case. I mean, it's an 8-page decision, which is lengthy, and the only reason why it is as weighty as it is what the appellate court needed to do in this particular case was write a decision that was as airtight as they could make it, so that Scientology couldn't, sue further up the chain. That's a lot of times when you're talking about appellate courts, that's what they wind up doing and why their decisions are so lengthy. The decision on the Proposition 8 rejection in the appellate court of California was like 15 or 20 pages long.
Yep.
And it was actually a really well written decision. and pretty damn airtight. It didn't stop them from going up and bringing it, I believe, to the Supreme Court now, but it will probably the original decision will most likely stand in that case, and that's due in part to the decision written by the appellate court. So in this particular case, the court concludes that the appellant, Scientology, has failed to identify any state interest, let alone one which is sufficiently countervailing or compelling to justify the infringements on the constitutional rights of CAN-LA, which would occur were the Unruh Civil Rights Act to apply in this case. Mm-hmm. Now, what they're saying there is that this not-for-profit organization has a right to include or exclude anyone that they want into their organization due to the fact that they're not-for-profit, which kind of puts them in a lot of ways in the same category as a private citizen or a private individual.
Right. I don't have to know your behavior. I don't have to allow you into my family, into my household, into my behavior, into my anything. I'm a private citizen.
Right. And to say that you have to would be a violation of that individual's constitutional rights and by default a violation of this organization's constitutional rights. Mm-hmm. I mean, they can't be compelled by a court of law to accept anyone. They could accept if they're mandated to accept Scientologists, where that slippery slope leads. Next thing you know, bears are going to try and get admission to the Cult Awareness Network.
Oh yeah.
And after bears, heroin. That's what happens.
Or more appropriately, atheists are going to try and join the Catholic Church and disrupt it from the inside. Or Hasidic Jews are going to try and get the Catholic Church to move the Sabbath from Sunday to Friday, or what have you. I mean, in all seriousness, that is something that could happen. If you remember Michael Moore suggesting that everybody join the NRA, so we'd all get voting privileges so we could vote against the NRA.
That's a good plan.
It was a good plan. Well, nobody's going to do it.
No.
But, that's the sort of thing that they were suggesting would happen in this sort of situation. And it's been suggested by many people that it could be. And, that would deprive people like the Catholic Church or Hasidic Jews or, strong religious groups from being compromised for their own principles by these usurpers. Or if what happened at the school, the UB atheist group, mm-hmm. they were forced to allow anyone to join. A bunch of people from the born-again Christian group joined and then voted to dissolve the group.
Yeah.
That's what they're trying to avoid, and that's the sort of thing that seems perfectly reasonable.
I agree. On the other hand, I really do think that you and I should join the Catholic Church. I think that either one of us would actually make an excellent pope.
I'd make a great pope. I mean, you'd make a pretty good pope.
I could wear the hat.
I think I'd look better with the tall hat. You might look better with the yarmulke. Although I am
it's going to be
Jewish.
like that, is it?
I'm Jewish, and oddly would look better with the tall hat than the yarmulke.
Well, I am taller than you, so if I wore the tall hat, it may hit the top
You're
of the
a quarter of an inch taller than me, Paul. A quarter of an inch.
I am, gigantic to your dwarfism.
Quarter of an inch, and you slouch. So when we stand next to each other, I actually look taller than you.
You're like an Oompa Loompa.
I prefer Munchkin.
Yeah, sure.
Oompa Loompas were orange.
Well, sometimes you use that fake tanner in the summer, right?
No, I don't.
Oh, well, you should. You'd be an Oompa Loompa.
Oh, well done. Well said, sir.
Okay, so in conclusion, with this particular case, the order was affirmed, meaning the original court decision saying that no, Scientology, you can't sue the Cult Awareness Network, was affirmed by this appellate decision. And in the best part, of course, respondents are entitled to their costs on appeal, meaning that Scientology not only lost the case, but is required to pay for all the court costs and all the expenses mm-hmm. in bringing this frivolous lawsuit, and then appealing the frivolous lawsuit.
Yep.
But the story doesn't end there. This court case was the last you hear of Scientology suing the Cult Awareness Network, but some other stuff happened.
But then there's more. There's an additional lawsuit, which comes from a gentleman by the name of Jason Scott. Jason Scott was kidnapped and abducted from a Pentecost church that he had joined. It was a cult. His family got the Cult Awareness Network to kidnap him and deprogram him.
Yeah.
Which they shouldn't be doing, but, what you got to do. His family was really upset by the fact that he became some weird psycho-culty guy. And then the problem is he was 18 at the time, so he was legally an adult, and so he sued the Cult Awareness Network. And he was he was represented by Mr. Kendrick Moxon, a Scientology attorney. And Turns out a 9-member jury unanimously held that the Cult Awareness Network was guilty of conspiracy.
Well, yeah, you're really not supposed to
deprive him of his civil rights and religious liberties.
You're not supposed to kidnap people.
You're not. And the fine, because it was just a monetary fine, was $2 million that they owed this Jason Scott and his attorney, Kendrick Moxon, of the Scientology.
$2 million?
$2 million.
All right.
So, to get rid of this lawsuit, to get rid of this $2 million, they were more than willing to sell the name Cult Awareness Network to the Scientologists for $20,000.
That's it? $20,000, huh?
Well, out of the $2 million, you know. And so, around 1996, the then head of the International Cultic Studies Association issued a memorandum to everybody that they work with, all the different anti-cult groups, that sort of thing, which reads, "To whom it may concern, on October 23rd, 1996, the law firm, which has represented the Church of Scientology for years, purchased the logo and license agreement of the Cult Awareness Network. Accordingly, any publication or communication using CAN, name, or logo after October 23rd, 1996, should not be regarded as emanating from or having the approval of the Cult Awareness Network personnel or officers who were associated with the Cult Awareness Network before 23 October.
Yeah.
They just kept suing them until they found a way to get them.
Yeah.
And then they won, and they bought it. So the Cult Awareness Network is now a child of Scientology.
Right. So, you know, let that be a lesson to everyone out there. If you sue some organization because they won't let you into their club and you lose, just buy the club.
You just buy the club. Then you'd say, it's my club. I am now the Cult Awareness Network. Scientology is anti-cult. Except Scientology. Or wait, are we a cult? No, we're not a cult. No. So we're anti-cults.
No, we're not a cult. There's no brainwashing or thetans or engrams or anything like that.
And the thing that gets me, and this is what hits home with me specifically about the Cult Awareness Network, is that two of the cults that were the biggest on criticizing were, one, the Church of Scientology, and two, Landmark. Now, Landmark doesn't get as much press because they aren't quite as popular and don't make as much money as the Cult Awareness Network, as Scientology. But they hit home for me because I've got like 3 relatives that joined Landmark.
Oh, that's a crazy
back when
thing.
It was Erhard seminar training, and I emphasize the Erhard because it's really German and Nazi sounding, and the guy changed his name from like Heini Rosenberg to Werner Erhard, and then he went to the Scientology meetings and took notes, and then left and started Erhard seminar training, which is marathon training. They don't let you go to the bathroom for 24 hours. They make you stand up there and tell your deepest, darkest secrets and cry and any number of other things. And those are the 2 groups that were most involved with trying to destroy the Cult Awareness Network, the 2 that were most criticized by them. And Scientology, with the big budget, they won.
Yeah. You know, I know you're gonna get into cults in some detail later, but it's just, if you go anywhere to any organization or meeting or anything like that, and they tell you you have to do things and you're not allowed to do things, to just throw up some flags. I'm just saying, like, you walk into a meeting and they say you're not allowed to go to the bathroom for 24 hours. My response to that would be, fuck you, I'm going home.
Well, except for the fact that Landmark, which was S at the time, then became Landmark because they got sued and had to change their name because they had some serious tax evasion problems.
Yeah, that's nice.
But when they became Landmark, the weekend retreats where they didn't let you go to the bathroom for a couple of days, those were like $5,000, $10,000. So you didn't get up and leave. You trusted the system that you paid thousands and thousands of dollars for.
You have to spend $5,000 to have somebody tell you that you can't go to the bathroom for 24 hours.
Yes, but it builds character and strength and blah, 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 something or other thing.
Well, I definitely feel like I have much more character after I don't go to the bathroom for a very long time.
Well, again, it's, we'll get into more detail of this later, but it does. It controls your environment. It controls your bodily functions.
Yeah.
They control everything about you. They have you chanting and screaming in this enclosed space where you're deprived of contact to other people. It's a very, very effective form of mind control.
Yes, it is. And so many people just fall for that. And I've known a bunch of people I grew up with.
Self-help, my friend.
Yeah. self-help winds up leading directly into that whole cult thing.
Mm-hmm.
But we're gonna get to that later. Let's kind of move on. We're gonna move on from this Cult Awareness Network court case to talk about the things that we are doing this week, which you may or may not have guessed at this point. We are talking about cults.
Cults.
Yes. So we're talking about cults and all things culty and diet soda and Cheektowaga. So
yes,
we're going to talk about all these things. I think David's going to make us listen to a really bad song, and we're going to hate him forever for it. But
I believe he has an honest-to-goodness intellectual critique of a very, very popular current work of art that you may be familiar with, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, so if you have any questions, comments...
I like that description better.
This is better than what you got. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, give us a call. The number is 424-243-9589. We would love to get some calls and chat with some people today about cults and diet soda and Cheektowaga and Candyland.
That's about right.
Yeah. Okay, so you can also email us at reason@wnyatheist.org, and there's also a chat room if you want to just drop in some comments at blogtalkradio.com/Reason Podcast. So check us out there. And we're going to move on to current events. Now, Josh,
I've got something that hits close to home.
Yeah, we are in the western New York region. And to all of the world out there, we are in Buffalo.
Right.
But if you want to be technical about it, and by technical I mean like 4 houses in, we are currently in Cheektowaga.
Cheektowaga, New York.
Yes.
Now, Paul, where'd you go to high school?
I actually went to Depew High School.
Oh, you didn't go to this one. I actually thought you'd gone to this high school.
No. Apparently they were our enemies or something. We hated
because they believed in God.
Yeah.
This is from the Buffalo News. Cheektowaga teacher sues over forced removal of religious items. Apparently, there was a science teacher who put a little bit of God back into science. Old school style. According to the student that reported this, the science teacher had, reported to the Freedom from Religion Foundation that a Joelle Silver had, drawings of 3 crosses on the wall near her desk in the classroom. The student also reported that the organization reported to the Freedom from Religion Foundation that a guest speaker discussing genetic defects in Silver's anatomy class had used Bible passages in his presentation, and that Silver herself had referred to Adam and Eve in a discussion about the human rib cage.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought she just had the Christian memorabilia shit up.
No. She mentioned Adam and Eve in the discussion of the human rib cage. The student felt uncomfortable and alienated by the religious references and materials, and basically asked the Freedom from Religion Foundation to intervene, to take a look. And they did, and they reported it to the superintendent of Cheektowaga, who said, you have to take that down. You can't have a poster, which they had 3 crosses. They had a poster with a quote from Corinthians. They had, I'll actually give it to you right here, quote from Corinthians, Paul's first letter to Corinthians: be on guard, stand true to what you believe, be courageous, be strong, and everything you do must be done in love. Now, that seems fine.
Yeah, that's nice.
Sure. They also have a poster with Ronald Reagan on it.
Yeah, that was
Ronnie Reagan. And it says, without God, democracy will not and cannot endure. It also says, if we ever forget that we are one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
We really, really hated the communists.
Yes, indeed, we really did. So she takes the posters down, and I assume stops talking about Adam and Eve in biology class, but then files suit.
Like you do.
She sues the school for censoring her speech by ordering the removal of religious items from her classroom. She's suing on a freedom of speech level. She complained in federal court papers that Cheektowaga Central School District officials threatened to fire her if she didn't take down posters with religious messages. And she also, by the way, had a prayer request box for the school's Bible study club in her biology class.
Oh, Jesus
It's not
Christ.
that she had it, it's that she had it in her biology class. So the school district, quote, says, quote, public employees, including teachers, have to act neutrally with regard to, I apologize, this is the Freedom from Religion Foundation in their original letter, their original request to the school board.
Mm-hmm.
Public employees, including teachers, have to act neutrally with regard to religion. They cannot push any religion. They have to promote the separation of faith and government. And since she got a government paycheck, she couldn't promote any faith.
Yeah, I mean, teachers in a public high school, like it or not, do not have freedom of speech.
They don't. They're limited.
Right. I mean, they're acting as an agent of the government at that point.
Yes, indeed. And as an agent of the government, you cannot promote any specific religion. But she seems to believe that this was not promoting. It was simply her free exercise of religion.
I'm not promoting religion. I just put up a bunch of religious shit all around my classroom and talked about how males have an odd number of ribs because God took one from Adam and put it in Eve.
Mm-hmm. Which, anybody that's listening that's ever seen a skeleton, you know it's crazy, right? That's just some crazy shit.
No, that's correct.
Men are missing men have one less rib?
Right.
Okay, I didn't know that. All the skeletons I've seen apparently were all female because they have an equal number of ribs.
No, they weren't all female. Those are forgeries made out of paper mache, just like the dinosaur bones.
Oh, yes, good call. That's why they won't let you touch them. Attorney Robert J. Muse maintained that constitutional violations occurred when district officials forced Silver to remove the religious materials. Quote, they essentially want her to cease being a Christian once she enters school district property.
That seems about right.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, you just shut the fuck up about it.
Pretty much, yeah.
You're already running the Bible study group. Everybody knows you're the one running the Bible study group. Everybody knows you're a Christian. You know, that's fine. You just don't keep it in Bible study class or Bible study group.
Sure.
Don't have it in biology class. Problem solved.
Yep.
Superintendent Dennis Kane said the district is caught in the middle of a dispute between, quote, two big special interest groups and was likely to be sued regardless of what it did or didn't do. So he's not particularly surprised. Yeah, right now the case is still ongoing, but I like this one because it hits close to home. Now, I did take a quick look at some of the other places where this occurs, and I found an article on the same case from goddiscussion.com, which actually seems to have, it is fairly high caliber. And the article is fairly neutral. It's of course biased, as you would assume, toward the appellant, but it's not particularly damning, and they try to be fairly neutral. The thing that gets me is that the tags. You know how a blog has tags,
yes.
has labels?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the tags are American Freedom, Cheektowaga Central School District, Ronald Reagan, Science Teacher, and Crucifixion.
Okay.
I take that to mean that they believe that she's being crucified for her religious beliefs by being forced to not have posters.
Yeah, they don't. It's not the word crucifix or cross or anything.
Which does not appear in any of the articles that I read about this, and I read like 15 of them. None of them mention crucifix. They do mention the picture with the three crosses, but no, they specifically have as one of their keywords crucifixion.
The verb to crucify.
Yes, indeed. And they've been all over the place. There've been a lot of interesting stuff. I will say the Buffalo News apparently was more liberal than I thought they were, because some of the comments that I pulled from this were, let's see, Alan Bedenko writes, her First Amendment right to free exercise of her religion does not magically trump the prohibitions against proselytizing any particular religion to children in a public school. So, good for you, Alan Bodenko. Bobby Cat says, with each news story in the Buffalo News, a news round of ignorant comments appears. I have no truck against this teacher. I presume she has a college degree and knows that religious symbols have no place in schools, other public places. Thus, I assume she is trying to garner publicity in the same way that Donald Trump declared he will sue Bill Maher for silly comments. So, the consensus seems to be that, according to the posts at the Buffalo News website, that, yeah, it's illegal. Everybody knows it's illegal. And this chick is trying to get publicity. She's trying to make a stink. She's deliberately, possibly was hoping to be fired so she could sue for wrongful termination. But it seems to me that anyone sensible is on the same side that says, you have the prayer box in biology class. You talk about Adam and Eve. You have a speaker comes in that talks about, the Bible when talking about evolution. You're probably not the most scientific and probably a little proselytizing.
Yeah. And, as you pointed out, it seems like any reasonable person would realize that these are inappropriate things for a science classroom. I did a bunch of looking at the story when you first started talking about it earlier this week, and unfortunately, there are a fair number of people out there who are completely unreasonable.
No, they're all pretty sensible. These are all pretty reasonable people.
This is actually covered by a number of different news outlets, and all of them have their comment section on their web pages and everything like that. Lots of comments like supporting this chick, and yes, this is it's a violation of her freedom of speech to say that she can't talk about the Bible when she's talking about evolution.
And my violation of my freedom of speech is, and this is one that's always bothers me, when I'm at work, I can't answer the phone and say, "Hey, fuckwad."
Yeah.
I can't do that because I took a job that doesn't allow me to answer the phone, "Hey, fuckwad." I knew this when I got the job. I knew I wouldn't be able to answer the phone, "Hey, fuckwad," and I said, "You know what? That's okay with me."
You should still sue, though.
I should sue. It's a violation of my freedom of speech. In my religion, now it's a religious argument. In my religion, "Hey, fuckwad" is the greatest of compliments, and you are obligated to greet every new person with "Hey, fuckwad."
It's how we greet each other. It's like aloha, except it's "Hey, fuckwad."
Exactly. So I would like to be able to do this, and I think this is particularly reasonable. I mean, I think that the Freedom from Religion Foundation, or who are these other people? The people that are on her side. I forget. It's the Religious Tolerance Organization or something, which is really just a Christian front group. I think they would be on my side with the "Hey, fuckwad" thing. I assume.
And for anyone who's planning on calling in, guess how we're going to answer the phone.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The one thing that as I was saying, there are a bunch of unreasonable people out there who are kind of supporting this woman in her crusade against her violation of freedom of speech or whatever. One of the comments that I thought was should have been more effective than it was. It's certainly effective to me, but a lot of the Christian posters basically just ignored it, or basically said it was not the same thing. A commenter posted, "What if I had a science classroom or any sort of classroom in a public educational facility and put up a poster that says, 'There is no God'?"
Yeah, there'd probably be some trouble there.
Yeah.
Well, they actually, in the court case itself, they actually do reference, because I also went ahead and got a copy of the suit. They actually make reference to that as well, that one of the things they have a problem with is that in the guidance counselor's office, they have a bunch of posters promoting homosexuality.
Promoting homosexuality?
That's their claim. And they say that it is intended to create a welcoming environment for those who are gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgendered.
That sounds horrible.
And for those who promote and endorse such a lifestyle. So I guess they felt
flabbergasted.
Well, as a protected group, the Christian, I mean, there's not many of them. A lot of times, if you say you're Christian in public, people beat you up, tie you to the back of a pickup truck, and drag you across fucking Alabama till you're dead. That happens a lot to Christians.
Yeah.
So yes, we need to make sure we create a welcoming environment to them, because they're obviously a very discriminated against and endangered group, being 75% of the population?
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Something around there?
Yeah.
That professes to be a Christian. So yes, they're in danger. We need to make sure that they feel welcomed in our public institutions.
Well, we've said it before. A number of different people have said it, but it is commonplace for Christians, the Catholic Church, a lot of your religious institutions out there, to confuse being persecuted with not getting everything you want all the time.
Yeah, well, because they're right.
Yeah.
Christianity is correct. So every time you say something that halts them from promoting that and beating that into the skulls of impressionable children, obviously you're oppressing them. They are a proselytizing religion. Part of their religion necessitates proselytizing. Therefore, if you stop them from proselytizing, you are violating their religious freedom, and they are being oppressed.
I wonder, what does a poster that promotes homosexuality say? I mean, does it say like, "Hey kids, try the butt sex. It's good fun.
I mean, ever guzzle the cock? It's good and good for you." I think my guess is probably something like "gay." Okay.
Yeah.
With a picture of some smiling kid. That's my best guess. They don't give any of the words, but it's sadly gay friendly, and it's dangerous.
That is dangerous. Speaking of which, I did actually read. It's not the news article I'm going to discuss, but apparently, like, all of the bishops or something in England sent a letter to the House of Lords and the House of Commons. Mm-hmm. They all signed this letter saying that if England were to allow homosexual marriage, that it would destroy England, and would allow for persecution of Christians on the level of the Henry VIII ship. When
back in a country where they really did, back in the day, they really did kill Christians as opposed to Catholics. For good measure, I would see why they'd be more concerned. Yeah, I don't think it's likely, though.
It does seem unlikely that once gay people are allowed to get married, then all of a sudden they're burning popes at the stake, or only one pope. But
hey, those two gay guys are married. You want to kill some Christians? I think I do. Just like that. Wham, bam, thank you, Sam.
And you know what that leads to? Bears and then heroin.
Yes, and that's a slippery slope right there. I mean, there's no argument about that. Gay people getting married, beating Christians to death in the street. Bears, and then heroin. And other opiates as well.
Yes, yeah.
So that's clearly what the next step is.
And that's why we need to put an end to this. Okay, so I'm actually going to discuss two news articles that I found, two completely unrelated news articles.
I had to pick one from close by, and you had to one-up me with two. I see how you are.
That's how I roll.
All right, well, let's hear what you got.
All right, well, the first one is from a news gathering organization called WHEC.com. Mm-hmm. What does WHEC.com stand for? I don't know. I didn't do the research.
Okay, good. We've established that.
Yeah. So, which, that's fine. Especially the fact that this article is 4 sentences long. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel that I needed to put in much work in it. I'm phoning it in.
Well, it sounds like they didn't either.
No. Okay, so the article is entitled Diet Soda and Depression. So the article begins, I pretty much could just read the whole article, it's so short. So the article is that Diet Coke or Pepsi might make you feel better about your calorie intake. They don't say caloric intake, which would be more proper. They say
English.
About your calorie intake, but it can lead to an increased risk of depression. In a study from the National Institutes of Health, experts found that Americans who drank more than 4 cans of regular soda were 22% more likely to develop depression.
Oh.
The risk was even higher for people who drank 4 diet sodas a day at 31%. So 4 diet sodas a day, 31% above average chance of you being depressed. And then the whole capstone on the whole thing is that enjoying a diet fruit drink could put you at a 51% higher risk of depression.
With that fruit, that's what it is, fruit flavoring, I think.
That seems more like a correlation than causation.
Oh, no, this is correct.
No, this is science. And fruit drinks, I think that includes squirt.
Yes.
You got me there.
So I think this is pretty strong stuff. Okay, continue.
Ironclad.
The article concludes by stating that people who drank 4 cups of coffee per day were actually 10% less likely to be diagnosed with depression compared to people who didn't drink coffee. Okay, so that's Diet Soda and Depression from WHEC.com.
I'm sorry, you said you had 2, though.
I did.
Unrelated.
Yes.
Okay.
The next article I want to discuss actually comes from the BBC News health page.
Oh, I actually am somewhat impressed by how the BBC handles things from time to time. So let's hear, what are they talking about?
This completely different article is entitled, Diet Drinks Linked to Depression Questioned. So this article, which actually is of a significant length, discusses the exact study that we were talking about in the previous news article.
Okay, I'm sure it comes up with the exact same conclusion in every way.
It does, absolutely. Basically, they state, they actually give some numbers in this that are more useful than the other one. They say that 250,000 people were involved in this study, and it found that depression was more common among frequent consumers of artificially sweetened beverages. Mm-hmm. And the work was presented at the American Academy of Neurology's annual meeting, and the work did not look at the cause for this link. They also state that drinking coffee was linked with a lower risk of depression.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so far everything sounds exactly the same.
Now, lead researcher Dr. Hongli Chen of the National Institute of Health in North Carolina said, quote, our research suggests that cutting down or cutting out on sweetened diet drinks or replacing them with unsweetened coffee may naturally help lower your depression risk, end quote. He did then state that more studies were needed to explore this. And now the BBC article brings up some points which perhaps should have been addressed in the previous article.
Points?
Yeah. Like, for example, the findings. Mm-hmm. The 250,000 people who were studied in basically this survey were people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, and 80s living in the U.S. Mm-hmm. Nobody under 50 was included in this study.
Okay.
So right off the bat, it's not
a little tainted.
Fair to say that this applies to other populations of of human beings in America or any other country. So, again, they go out on a limb to state that the safety of sweeteners like aspartame has been extensively studied and tested by scientists and assured by regulators as being safe, which is quite established in spite of what all you crazy people out there believe. So Gaynor Bussell of the British Dietetic Association actually analyzed this work further, and he states this throws up a possibility link, not a cause and effect link. For starters, people who suffer from depression may latch on to the idea that it is their sweetened beverage that caused it, and so that adds a bias to the reporting of past intake, especially as soda in the U.S. is demonized even more than in the U.K., as he states. Also, it may be that drinking diet drinks is a marker for obesity or diabetes, which themselves can cause depression. So non-calorific sweeteners can play a useful role in the diets of those trying to lose weight and diabetics, and it is certainly not advocated that people should replace their diet sodas with more coffee. So Beth Murphy at the Mental Health Charity Mind, an organization in England, stated, quote, "We would urge anyone who is affected by depression to follow the advice of their general practitioner or other medical professional in regards to their treatment." See, that's reasonable, rational, and sound advice. If you have a medical condition, you should go see your doctor about the medical condition.
I will also say that it does seem reasonable that people that are still drinking diet drinks in their 50s, 60s, and 70s probably are suffering a weight issue for long periods of time. And, you know, some of them may have suffered from diabetes, you're right, which does cause depression, obesity, which does cause depression. What about 20-year-olds who are emotionally all over the map?
Right.
And the people that you do basically every study on earth of because they're in college and they're available.
Right. And you know what else causes depression? Getting old.
Yep.
So there's
well, no, but why would getting old and drinking aspartame be more depressing than getting old and drinking sugar?
Because aspartame's artificial, and you know anything artificial is not natural.
That is true. That is true.
There's natural, which is natural, and there's artificial, which is not natural.
Yes, well, that does answer the question. But that really does lead to the question, is it really, since they don't say that they control for things, the obesity issue does seem to be a problem.
Right.
And with older Americans, people that are still obese in their 50s, 60s, and 70s are probably people that have struggled with this for a very long time.
Yes.
And probably do suffer a little bit more self-esteem problems, do suffer a bit more depression, any number of other things than people that, you know, don't think about it, like people that drink sugared beverages.
Right.
They don't have the concern. They're not suffering this additional modality, which causes, increased depression. So it sounds to me like people that are severely overweight in their 50s, 60s, and 70s might also suffer from a little bit of extra depression.
Yeah. And, you know, this is a tiny example of something that, at least John and I see all the time. And if you read news from many different sources, you may see it as well. It's the American version, the American published story that basically says, yeah, they found out that diet soda makes you depressed. Yeah. And that's it. And no further information. And it's
no reporting, no journalism.
No, not a bit. Just
talking head.
A reactionary response to,
not just reactionary, it's simply regurgitating.
Yes.
Without any critical thought, without any analysis. Maybe they do make people more likely to be depressed. But apparently, according to multiple sources now, and I've got Brian here who put in the chat room the listing at WebMD, the doctors say it requires more study because it's not solid. And that's not
at all
unreasonable that you'd say, that's interesting, perhaps we'll do a study on people in their 30s and see if the same result holds.
Right. And the annoying thing is that it takes going all the way to England to find what is legitimate reporting on this, where they actually not only regurgitated the information from the study, they also consulted with experts, got quotes from experts, 2 different experts for this one news article, who both voiced the opinion that A, further study needs to be done and there's a correlation but no causative link whatsoever, and B, don't just, say, I'm going to stop drinking diet soda and guzzle coffee all the time just because this study says these things. We need to study it more. And that, in my opinion, is responsible journalism, something that we are not so good at in America. But
not for quite a while now.
No. So that is this recent study that's been published on diet soda and depression. So I hope everyone listened to that kind of half-heartedly and is now going to throw out all their diet soda and drink nothing but coffee.
Exactly. But this actually raises a separate issue for me and something which has caused me a lot of problems. It's basically rings the bell again of journalists should be skeptics. They should be skeptical. You make a claim, they should question it. And one thing that I hate above all other things is I hate fake skeptics. I hate fake skeptics. I hate them so much. It drives me insane for a couple of basic reasons, but I'm going to try and map it out here fairly clearly and fairly understandably. There are really three kinds of skeptics, in my experience. There are actual skeptics who think, analyze, and question things, even things that they want to be true. They still question. Now, I'm a staunch leftist, but I question whether Bush's crazy policy led to the Arab Spring we had, this crazy policy of, hey, let's just invade countries. Then we did get the Arab Spring, so I have to question whether or not that was, in fact, a good idea. I have to question whether the free market capitalism really would solve a lot of our economic problems. I do care about the collateral damage that might ensue in the form of sick and starving children, and I think that in the short run is probably more important, but I actively question it to this day. And there are those that question a thing or two that society propagates. And there are those who have questioned a thing or two that society propagates and disregard, but do not question other things. For example, the anti-supernaturalists. There are atheists, anti-medicine, anti-alien encounterists. They find one or two things bullshit, but don't bother to question the others. So they've a lot of folks out there that they're atheists, but they believe that in alien abduction or homeopathy or what have you. And then there are those that I get really pissed off about. People that are just fake skeptics. They don't question one or two things and forget the rest. They don't question everything. No. Fake skeptics join a club. They join the atheist club or the anti-superstition club or the Republican Party or the Democratic Party or the Green Party, whatever. They drink that Kool-Aid. They don't actively question anything. They just take the contrary view that their small sect professes. The religious do this a lot. They think astrology is bunk because their religion tells them so. Alien contact can't exist because it's not in the Bible. Oddly, it doesn't bother me when the religious do this because they're not professing to be skeptics. Now, I recall we talked about this a few months back at TAM 9, I think it was. And no, I didn't get to go. Would like to go to any of the amazing meetings, but didn't get to go. There was an announcement that the atheists should not challenge the religious views of theistic skeptics. Try not to offend them. Now, on something like that, I call shenanigans. A skeptic should be willing to examine any belief. Paul and I spent some time a year or so ago doing research in the Holocaust. Now, I'm Jewish, and I had relatives who died in the death camps. Still willing to look critically at the story to see how much of it is supported. We found out a lot is supported. I recommend actually that you do the same. Our research revealed some inconsistencies and flaws in the historical story, but supported much, and I like to think that I'm now totally justified in defending the existence and the horror of the Holocaust, but only because I questioned it. There was no sacred cow. I actually said, well, let's see how much of this is true and how much this may be bunk. Turns out a lot of it was true. Virtually all of it was true, but that's neither here nor there. I now feel strongly that I can support that. I've also done the same for slavery, the Industrial Revolution, memetics, Hanukkah, as you may have heard a few weeks back, dark matter, and many other topics. By questioning what I thought I knew, I got to do two things. One, I get to correct my misunderstandings, the things where I was incorrect. Second, I get real honest support when I was right to begin with. Now, I can argue areas I've examined. I don't just assume I'm right, but now I can say how or why I'm right because I challenged my assumptions, corrected where I was wrong, and supported where I was right. I was a critical thinker, and that is skepticism. The fake skeptics just join a club. They accept the doctrine, skeptical of what the club is skeptical about, and accepting of preconceived notions that the club professes. Now, I'm a Democrat, and I still spend a fair amount of time considering the benefits of fracking, capital gains tax, affirmative action, socialized medicine, and the like. I don't just accept them because that's what my club and my team does. I look at those issues discriminating. I critically analyze them to decide whether or not I'm right, whether or not I'm wrong. Just because I join a club doesn't mean I just joined the club and drank the Kool-Aid. No, I accept most of what the Democratic Party say. I say most of what the liberals say. So I'm a Democrat and a liberal. All of it? No. And that's part of the reason I wanted to put this in the cult show. That's exactly what cults do. It's a sort of a little miniature bit of cult mentality. Is I've joined the group, I'll drink the Kool-Aid. We hate fracking? Okay, I won't do any more research. It's evil. Organic food? Okay, organic food's better. Alien encounters? Okay, sure. Just choosing to accept everything that somebody hands out to you because they were right on one issue, that's lazy, stupid thinking. It offends me, and it offends me more than I can possibly express. So that is what I'm angry about this week. That's what annoys me. Fake skeptics.
All right, we'll be back in a moment to talk about cults, but before we do so, I just want to say, Brian, shenanigans, Brian. Shenanigans.
Do you have questions, comments, concerns, or random musings? Email us at reason@wnyatheist.org. Out of boredom, you should check us out on Twitter and follow @Reason Podcast. We appreciate it when folks retweet us because it makes us feel smart and important. Listen live Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern on blogtalkradio.com. Call in, join the conversation at 424-243-9589. Can't listen live on Sundays because you're too busy praying to whatever gods you believe in? We are also on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and you can download the show from wnyatheist.org/reason.php. Find us on Facebook at Reason Podcast, and go ahead and like us. We'll take your liking us as loving us, and that will sufficiently satisfy our egos. We know you're out there, we know you're listening, and we appreciate it more than these words can say.
All right, so Josh, you're going to enlighten us a little bit on cults.
Just a little bit. And cults are a very tricky topic because, first of all, a lot of people make the argument that the Marine Corps is a cult organization. It does share some characteristics that the Catholic Church or the, some random, let's say the Baptist Church, or what have you, that these are cults. Mm-hmm. And the problem is that we've already defined those as religions. And, the Marines as Marines.
With the Marines or any of the armed services in particular, you, unlike most cults, you actually, you can get arrested for simply going home.
Yes. But truth be told, they don't really qualify as cults, and that's one of the problems. What's a cult? Because, they seem bad, the name sounds bad, but what are they really? So there are a lot of different ways to define a cult, and especially a destructive cult, which is the kind we actually care about. So, looking over the Internet, and I looked over the Internet in its entirety. Yes, I read the whole thing. Now, I came across a crap
load. That must
take
you at least like an afternoon.
Oh, an hour and a half. Hour and a half of straight looking over the Internet. It was terrible. It was horrible.
I bet you it goes surprisingly
fast.
Data. Surprisingly fast once you exclude all the porn.
You should have excluded the porn.
It would have saved so much time.
No, but I came across a crap load of different ways of defining and pigeonholing, categorizing. You'd be surprised how many different religious websites define cults in a way that completely and specifically, but absolutely excludes them and other old religions. I know that a lot of people have stopped using the word cult. They call them new religious movements because cults sort of have to have a short timeline. Otherwise, they become religions. But, some leave it open. Some of these places, especially the neutral ones, leave a little bit of elbow room for things like the Jehovah's Witnesses or the Mormons or the Scientologists. Some make them into cults, some don't, depending on the definition. And to be fair, I did try to look at my own way to define a cult, and I didn't come up with much that was very good. I've tried during this to exclude what we call the classical religions. So if anybody thinks it's going to be religion bashing, that's not exactly what's going to happen here. I'm doing my best to really edge it out.
Well, not this episode, at least.
No. And I'd say that the best way to define cults is the way that the Supreme Court defined pornography. I may not be able to define it, but I know it when I see it.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring up that quote, and you beat me to it.
Yeah, because that's really the way it is, because you can tell a cult.
Yeah.
Is Amway a cult? Well, no, but if they did much more, they'd be a cult. I mean, they're like borderline culty.
They're pretty damn close to a cult.
But they're not. They don't really qualify. So there are a few characteristics that are common to cults, right? One, it uses psychological coercion to recruit, indoctrinate, and retain its members. All right? Two, it forms an elitist totalitarian society. So it forms a separate group which has a strict hierarchy and is almost totalitarian in its nature. Its founder, its leader, is usually self-appointed, dogmatic, messianic, and not accountable. Oh, and very charismatic. Very important to have a cult of personality.
And for the most part, usually winds up sleeping with all the women.
Well, charisma breeds poontang.
Yeah, I saw that David Koresh guy. He was one sexy man.
Well, he was charismatic. I don't know if he was sexy. He actually was a fairly attractive guy who would just shaved and cut his damn hair.
Yeah, he was a little ridiculous.
He was a fine-looking guy, but he was charismatic as well. They also believe that the ends justify the means in a way of soliciting funds and recruiting people. And its wealth does not benefit the members of its society. So they take the money, but they don't help you out. So they don't have food clinics or food shelter. What the hell's the word I'm looking for? Food stations where they give away food banks. Thank you. They don't do that sort of thing that much. If they do, it's a tiny percentage of the money they pull in. They're mostly using it to build their organization, as Paul may have mentioned or implied through the random funds that the Church of Scientology has to defend the Church of Scientology, as opposed to helping Scientologists.
Well, Scientology in particular, they are an interesting religious organization for the fact that they have these different steps. They have what's called the bridge that you have to go through, and in order to go step by step through the bridge, you have to take these Scientology courses that cost $500, $1,000, $5,000, and then ultimately they just ask for all of your money, all of it. Like, sign your house over to them, sign everything over to them. So Scientology is quite crafty in the whole collection of funds.
Well, if you've gone through like the first 10 levels, you're probably willing to give them everything. So they might as well at that point just ask you for money. So those are the 5 characteristics. That's pretty vague. But it sort of has to be, because we don't really know what cults are. Hell, we don't even know what religions are, for that matter. But the real devilish part of the cult, and this is the part that is really entertaining. I followed this for a long time because I got interested in Charlie Manson when I was probably 12 years old, and started trying to figure out how that worked.
So that explains everything.
Yes. So basically, some of the things you need to accomplish for an appropriate mind control or brainwashing.
Oh, good lessons.
Hypnosis or something along the like. It's usually inducing a state of high suggestibility by hypnosis, meditation, relaxation techniques.
You know, and hypnosis is an interesting thing because it's typically lumped in with a lot of things that skeptics consider bullshit. The thing about hypnosis is it actually does work. Kind of, sort of, maybe.
It's sort of, a little bit, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, the whole stage thing about making somebody believe that they're a chicken, that's
bullshit.
But there is a way to increase a victim's susceptibility to
suggestion.
To suggestion through relaxation techniques and meditation and stuff like that. Apparently it works.
They also require peer group pressure, so they basically suppress doubt and resistance to new ideas by exploiting the need to belong. You create a club, a very accepting club, but you have to believe everything the club believes. Have to be part of it. So you suppress your own doubt. So you basically try to be brainwashed under this circumstance just through peer pressure. What they call love bombing. It's creating a sense of family and belonging through hugging, kissing, touching, flattery, a lot of physical contact, these things that promote basically neurotransmitters in the brain. They make you feel better. These people make you feel better. It's love bombing. There's, of course, the rejection of old values, that this is a better and a new way of being or living. They often have what they call a confusing doctrine. Your doctrine of faith doesn't make sense. And that encourages blind acceptance and the rejection of logic, which is pretty important when you're trying to, get permission to bang somebody's, 9-year-old daughter, or whatever it is these people do in cults. It's hard to get that to happen until you abandon logic.
Yeah, that's step one in the whole process of banging a 9-year-old.
Seriously, that one where they were dressed up like they were dressed up like the Amish, but they weren't the Amish, and they were like banging children. What the fuck, man? Okay, that's a digression. I apologize. There's also meta communication, which is, and I don't like some of this terminology, but I think it is the best. It's implanting subliminal messages by stressing certain keywords or phrases in long, confusing lectures. They also call them weasel words when it's done politically. Mm-hmm. Things like urban to mean black, so that you understand what it is. They're keywords. They're trick language.
And this is, again, what Scientology is one of the things they're most famous for is the newspeak. The newspeak and the abbreviations. Mm-hmm. Like we talked about suppressive groups. They also have suppressive persons in Scientology. They don't call them suppressive persons. They call them SPs. Mm-hmm. And if you read anything from the Church of Scientology or listen to a Scientologist talk, you'll actually have no fucking idea what they're saying, because there's so many weasel words and code words embedded into their language that it's just very...
But they understand what they mean.
Yep.
And that's the thing. It's, again, part of the cult mentality, the group mentality, this different way of thinking by using different words and terms and using them in different ways.
Yeah.
There's the removal of privacy, which, as you understand, that's why they put people on camps and make them all sleep together in little bunks and things. It's the removal of privacy. It's dehumanization. Time sense deprivation, destroying your ability to evaluate information, personal reactions, and body functions in relation to the passage of time by removing clocks and watches. Like 24-hour marathons where they take all the clocks out and people just stand up and talk like they do in Hart seminar training and Landmark. That's one of the things they do is they alter your perception of reality by removing anything that shows the passage of time. There's disinhibition, which is encouraging childlike obedience by orchestrating childlike behavior. They also do regression therapy, which encourages childlike behavior. I mean, there's, of course, the fascistic uncompromising rules, inducing regression and disorientation by soliciting the agreement to seemingly simple rules which regulate meal times, bathroom breaks, the use of medications. They can control your body and, in turn, control your mind. There's a lot of verbal abuse, desensitizing through bombardment with foul and abusive language, which is also something that they do at Landmark or Est. Sleep deprivation and fatigue, where they put you in, again, like the meditative state or the hypnotic state. You're half asleep, so you're much more susceptible to the bullshit they sell. So basically prolonged mental and physical activity and withholding of adequate sleep. That's why they have these things as places you go to spend a weekend or a week or, forever. Yeah. That way they can control your time. Dress codes. Again, we all look the same. We all act the same. You'll remember Applewhite, the Hale-Bop people that were all wearing the exact same outfit and, went up to the Comet after they committed suicide.
And drank all the exact same flavor Kool-Aid.
Yes. A lot of chanting and singing, which if anybody's ever been to a football game, knows that it's unifying force. Chanting and singing together makes us all us versus them, and it creates that divide. Confession, which is fantastic, and the Catholics really had a good one on this one for years.
Yeah.
Encouraging the destruction of individual ego through confession of personal weakness, your innermost feelings, your doubts, your sins, your transgressions. It's revealing to open that up, but it also makes you vulnerable emotionally and psychologically.
And one of the things that confession really does, and this kind of ties in with the whole love bombing thing that you were talking about earlier, is when you wind up externalizing approval, when you wind up in a situation where you're compelled to reveal something that you feel is a negative about yourself and then are praised for doing so, you get that external approval, that outside acceptance. Mm-hmm. It's the same situation with the whole love bombing thing that you're talking about.
Outside acceptance, the good feeling.
And all that does is build up within the person who's trapped within the cult a situation where being kicked out of the cult, being removed from that population of people that give you the good endorphins and the warm feelings is, tantamount to death. Like, that is the worst possible thing. And that's, one of the things that cults specifically do in order to keep people in is make it so that You create an environment that's completely foreign and gives you the good, happy feelings, and to leave it would be tantamount to death.
Right, and in addition to that, there's the financial commitment.
Yeah.
That they make you burn the bridges. Burn the bridges for every other mode of advancement that you have, so that every dollar you have goes to them. They pay for your food, your shelter, that sort of thing. There's the flaunting of the hierarchy, which means that they can move you up. You have a place to go. You have a hierarchy to climb, much like your Amway. Finger pointing, which is creating a false sense of righteousness by pointing the shortcomings of the outside world. Those people all believe in a false God, except we believe in the real God. Those people sin, we don't. Any number of things that you probably get from a Christian TV show. Isolation, which is, again, taking you away from everything else that you know and are comfortable with, which removes any power that you have to leave.
Yeah, putting you in a completely foreign environment and then telling you a bunch of shit, and this is your new reality, which is specifically different from your old reality.
Mm-hmm. There's controlled approval, which you were actually just bringing up early, is that they give you approval for any number of things that they deem to be correct. So it's basically retraining you like you train a child. You reward the child for good behavior, you punish the child for bad behavior. Same idea, controlled approval. The change of diet is pretty important because, again, controlling your body. You have to become a vegetarian, or you have to eat this, you have to eat that, you can't do these things. Controlling your body to control your mind. There's the guilt, which is a good one. It's reinforcing the need for salvation by exaggerating the sins of your former lifestyle.
Yeah, guilt is a powerful motivator.
Yep. You used to be horrible, but you're not anymore. You used to be horrible. Let's talk about how horrible you were. Would you like to confess it? What about confessing to the group? And you'll get a lot of praise and approval for, not being that guy anymore, which makes you not want to be that guy anymore. There's, of course, fear, which is one of the big ones in Scientology, is that the group will cut you off. You'll lose all your connections. You'll basically be on a wanted list. And then the replacement of relationships, where they cut your family ties, they cut your friend relationships, your work relationships. So the only family you have is the cult. And those are basically a scattershot of cult tactics for mind control. Some of them practice some of them practice others, some of them practice a lot, some of them practice a few, like your David Koresh's, the Branch Davidians, practiced a ton of them. Scientologists, just a few here and there, just the good ones. They still want you to go out there and get a job so you can pay for things, so they can't cut you off completely. But I mean, basically that's the gambit of them. Now, once you're in a cult, what can you expect? Well, I figured instead of doing that, why not just go through some interesting cults?
Sure.
Just a couple of fun ones. And I picked a couple here because I didn't know them before my research, and a couple of them because they're incredibly interesting. Now, the Church of Bible Understanding. Now,
nice name.
Yeah, they're not particularly famous, but they also haven't, generally speaking, committed mass suicide or killed anyone. So you don't get a lot of press for not doing that.
That's how you get on the news. These people are, behind.
Right. They started in 1971 by a former vacuum repairman, Stuart Trail.
I seriously thought you were going to say vacuum cleaner. It started in 1979 by a vacuum cleaner.
In Allentown, Pennsylvania. It targeted teens as young as 13, drawing on their weaknesses to the 70s. It spread about quite a bit. He was the son of a Presbyterian minister who taught that he was the reincarnation of Elijah and that he knows the date of the return of Jesus Christ. The real fun thing is that they run a mission in Haiti where the former members claim Haitian children are indoctrinated in exchange for food and clothing. Very nice.
Yeah.
And according to an article originally appearing in the Manassas Journal Messenger, they actually received government funds from the United States government for their mission in Haiti as part of President Bush's faith-based initiative. So they get taxpayer money.
Lovely.
Now, next I've got the Manson family. Everybody knows the Manson family, but the interesting part for me isn't the fact that they, killed a pregnant woman and killed some other people because they thought they were related to a fortune. The interesting thing to me is Charlie Manson and his idea of what the future held.
Yeah, he had some pretty interesting thoughts on the future.
Yeah, first off, he was a child of an unwed 16-year-old girl. His mother was an alcoholic and may have sold him to buy beer, but that's debatable. She did send him to a boarding school, and after a few years, and had a few years of living with his hyper-religious aunt and uncle, He committed a few robberies, went to jail for the first time. He had parole. He had a couple of girls that he used to whore out. He moved to New Mexico to use them as whores, and then he was tried, went to jail. And in 1967, he was finally released, and this is after having spent more than half his life in institutions. He asked for permission to move to San Francisco, where he went to Haight-Ashbury and began his guru movement. Now, he established his home on the George Spahn Ranch, but the real fun part is that he'd been predicting, because of all the social turmoil, the end of the world, and he predicted it based upon the Beatles album, the White Album. All right, he thought that the blacks in America, because of the whole Martin Luther King thing, were going to rise up and kill all the white people, and then they'd be left to govern themselves. But he was a racist, so he thought that the blacks would be so stupid that they wouldn't be able to, so they would come and seek out any white people that were left, and that'd be Manson's family, to rule them as kings.
Seems completely rational.
And so to start this race war, because the blacks just were not killing anybody, he was getting upset. So they went and killed a whole bunch of white people and pretended they were black people doing it to start a race war, which, as you can see, didn't happen. The blacks didn't rise up and kill Whitey. And Manson didn't come out of his cave after 10 years and proclaim himself king of the earth.
Instead, they all got arrested for murder.
Odd how that works.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's also, here's another one. Raelianism, or the Raelian Church. It's a UFO religion founded by purported contactee Claude Varohan, who claims to have been taken by the aliens and brought back. And there's going to be a new daughter, a new Eve in 2002. Let's see. Members of the Raelian Church consist of people who have been baptized by Raelian clergy in quarterly ceremonies. And among converts are members of his Raelian-founded free love groups, which consist primarily of girls that men in the group get to have sex with. He teaches a sensual philosophy and a physicalist expansion of the origin of life. And there may be somewhere in the neighborhood of, are you ready for it? 65,000 members worldwide, because this guy was abducted by an alien.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
All right.
It seems like I should have something to say about that.
65,000. I'm not sure that's a cult. I think that's a religion. I'm sorry.
Well, more people listen to the show than that.
Yeah, maybe so. So maybe we're cultists.
I think we're a bigger cult than the Raelians.
Again, there's Heaven's Gate, and for anybody out there that doesn't remember Heaven's Gate, I wanted to throw just a couple of interesting details. They're a bunch of very intelligent, probably Asperger types. They were computers. They were very confused, and society wasn't accepting them. So they started their little cult, and that was Applewhite and his sister / girlfriend / wife.
Oh, that seems how you do that.
Yeah. So they followed what you call a syncretistic religion, which is combining elements of Christianity with ufology and some of the books from Revelations that refer to, they think, UFOs. The dead would remain dead for 3.5 days before being revived on the comet Hale-Bopp, which came and went. Bodies are only temporary containers of the soul. The final act of metamorphosis or separation from the human kingdom is the disconnect or separation from the human physical container or body in order to be released from the human environment. And that's why you commit suicide.
You know, I always wondered what exactly they were thinking would happen after they came back to life on the comet.
Well, in spirit form.
But
there's going to be spirits on the comet.
But they're still just on a big floating rock that's just...
Okay, the Mormons believe in a planet like Kobol or something where there's another god creating another universe. They're going to go to Eden on that. So your problem is with the Hale-Bopp comet. That's your problem. The Mormons believe in another planet.
I just think it would be lame to be stuck on a rock.
Well, we're stuck on a big rock now.
Yeah, but this rock has, like, trees and grass and...
Yeah, but if we were metaphysical spirit forms, we might not care.
I would still want trees and grass and, bears and heroin.
Well, these folks basically all had pretty good careers. I mean, they were intelligent and educated people. Once they joined, they dressed in unisex garments. They were required to commit themselves to a celibate life, so the best part of being a cult leader. Yeah, you don't get any of that.
Yeah. Wrote that badly.
8 of the male members submitted to voluntary castration.
Really?
As a form of preparation for the next level of existence where gender identity would be and sex would be non-existent. And then 38 members in 1997 committed suicide. The mass death, the largest mass death that we've had in recent years. And to preparing to kill themselves, they drank citrus juices to ritually cleanse their bodies of impurities. I don't know why they needed their bodies to be cleansed if they were leaving them, but that's neither here nor there. Then they had a little bit of phenobarbital mixed with vodka. They put plastic bags around their heads to induce asphyxiation. And they all wore matching brand new sneakers and tracksuits. And then the last one I want to mention, which is the one that really gets me the most, is the Moonies, or the Unification Church, or the Church of the Reverend Sun Myung Moon in Korea. He began it in the 40s, divine revelation, blah, blah, blah. Jesus didn't come to die. Jesus came to free us and all that crap. Then in the 1970s, in the U.S., media reports that there's high-pressure recruitment by the Unificationists on college campuses all over the places where they finally started getting a bad name. In 1976, they received a bunch of thank you letters for kids that had skipped out, and that caused them to change their tactic. And after being banned in about a dozen countries from proselytizing at all, they followed a new tactic, one which they used their vast wealth to affect public policy. Let's see, they started the New World Encyclopedia, which is an online encyclopedia that edits and rewrites Wikipedia articles with a focus on unification values. They fund the Manhattan Center Theater and Recording Studio in New York City, along with the New York City Symphony. They fund the Conservatives.com political website in partnership with the Heritage Foundation, which is a bunch of born-again Christians, the Washington Institute for Values and Public Policy, the International Coalition for Religious Freedom in Virginia. Let's see, the National Prayer and Fast Committee, which supported President Nixon during his Watergate scandal.
Oh, nice.
They have a ton of stuff in Eastern Europe, but I'm not going to mention that because we're not going to know the names of those things. And they have a bunch of sports teams that they own way over there in the East. They also own News World Communications, which has papers all over the United Kingdom and the Middle East, including the Washington Times since 2010 they've owned. So if you, much like the Scientologists, just control a media outlet, and you control the story. Let's see, the Christian Heritage Foundation, again, the Foundation for Religious Freedom, which is also known as the Cult Awareness Network, is also partially owned, not only by the Scientologists, but by the Church of Sun Myung Moon. So 2 weirdo religious cults own the Cult Awareness Network now.
It's good to know. They sound like a reliable organization.
They also did a lot of the funding for George Bush's presidential library. Let's see, Liberty University, which is, again, one of those religious colleges. You would think they'd be opposed to this weirdo, bizarre religious cult, but they're giving money, so, Liberty University is taking it.
Well, they have a check, so.
$400,000 they loaned the university when it was hard up at 6% interest. Let's see, and they indirectly contributed $3.5 million toward the school's debt. So they gave almost $4 million to the Liberty University by eliminating some of their debt and loaning them some cash.
So they're basically trying to buy a university.
Yes, a university which is already crazy religious people.
Yeah.
There's the Million Family March in 2000, which was sponsored by them and the Nation of Islam.
Oh, so, nice partnership.
And the National Conservative Political Action Committee. They gave $500,000 to finance an anti-communist lobbying campaign, and this was back in the 80s. There are a couple others that are fun to mention. I mean, I actually cut a lot of these out because I wasn't familiar with the organizations, but they funded hundreds upon hundreds, particularly in Asia, as they come from Korea, but all over Europe and the United States, hundreds of organizations that dictate news, control stories. They fund the arts and any number of other things, but they're buying legitimacy. I think they're trying to go from cult to religion.
Yeah.
I was also going to mention, Jonestown, where the term drink the Kool-Aid comes from. and they killed a senator and they moved to Guyana. But I figured people probably know that story. If they don't, they should just watch the movie Jim Jones. It's a fantastic watch. It's quite entertaining.
It's a good time. So, I find it interesting that there seems to be two general categories for cults.
Mm-hmm.
Those who make and have a shitload of money and those who don't. So, like, your Jim Jones or your Charlie Manson or your David Koresh, they
have a small group of people that they isolate but then can't get money from.
Right. And those, to me, for the most part, seem to be the people, the leaders of those organizations seem to be the people who actually believe what they're saying. I have a more difficult time believing that the heads of Scientology are completely unaware that they have an incredibly profitable business and they're getting paid a shitload of money to do it.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the question. When we looked at the mind control techniques, a lot of them were isolation from the real world.
Right.
And if you're really, really crazy, like you really believe the load of bullshit you're selling, you really need to isolate people from the world. But that means you don't get a lot of cash. Mm-hmm. So you generally get a ranch or a small fortress or something where you can, get your few dozen people that you control like a god, and, you get to have sex with all the women there and, or men, whatever, and do what you like, and you're a god for a few years until the ATF comes and kills you.
Yeah.
Or, like the Moonies or the Jehovah's Witnesses or the Scientologists or the Mormons for that matter. You're not that crazy. So these people can go out into the world, and you don't have to control every aspect of their daily life. Just give them some rituals, like the Muslims have to pray 5 times a day. That's strict sort of thing that reminds them all the time. The Mormons wearing their magic underwear has to remind them all the time to be Mormon.
Yes.
And that's the sort of thing. And if you can do that, if you can get a trick that reminds your followers every day that they believe the crap you're selling, then they can go out there, get real jobs, and give you a good solid tithe, and you're well on your way to becoming the Catholic Church.
Right.
So I think you're right. There are two kinds of cults. There's self-destructive cults that are going to implode. So basically, it's like, it's like a crazy person that goes out there and does whatever he wants for a couple of years until the cops catch him and he dies. And he has a good time, sure, doing whatever he wants. Then there are people that want to have a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they turn from being religious fanatics to being businessmen and setting up a model for the next 10 years or so, like your Scientologists or your Moonies.
Yeah, well, there is that rumor, pretty much unsubstantiated rumor out there that L. Ron Hubbard started Scientology. L. Ron Hubbard, the science fiction writer, started Scientology as a joke and as a way to make lots of money. There is actually a quote from him that was written down someplace where he said, the real money's in religion or something.
They said, you're just churning out these crappy books. Are you just trying to make money? And I believe his quote was almost exactly, no, if I wanted to make a lot of money, I'd start my own religion. And then 5 years later, he publishes
Dianetics,
The Modern Science of Mental Health,
which I can't necessarily recommend that people go out and read Dianetics.
I can recommend they read the first paragraph, which is the most convoluted, crazy, batshit, horrible use of language that says we're not going to be confusing. In the most confusing sentence you will ever read. It's brilliant. I seriously, just for that, absolutely brilliant.
Well, it is the modern science of mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And by that I mean they believe that alien spirits are attached to your body, making you do bad things, and psychiatric medication is wrong.
And ancient aliens dropped nuclear bombs into volcanoes.
And then made the...
Zorg? Is his name Zorg? Zod? It's Zod, right? I think that's from Superman.
Yeah,
something like that. But yes, there's an evil ancient alien warlord that dropped all the Thetans into a volcano and then dropped an atomic bomb on them.
And then, after dropping an atomic bomb on them, made them watch movies.
Yes, with the programming. That's the craziest thing. Really, it is absolutely absurd that anyone could possibly believe this. But Tom Cruise has a lot of teeth. Have you seen him smile?
Yeah.
He's got like 12 more teeth than any other human being I've ever seen. He looks like a shark.
And, I'll just do, a free plug out there for somebody's website who I don't even know, but there is a very interesting website, if it's still up, I haven't been there in a while, called clambake.com. And the reference is that L. Ron Hubbard at some point said that we specifically evolved from clams.
How's it spelled?
With the word clam and the word bake.
Okay, no, it doesn't exist.
Ah, damn it. Oh, it was a very good website. They actually wound up stealing a bunch of Scientology documents and putting them up there, which is probably one of the reasons why they don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
But there are plenty of resources out there about the absolutely horrendous and fucked up shit that Scientology in particular does. And Josh has been talking a lot about all these various cults and everything. I am certainly most familiar with Scientology. I spent
www.xenu.net.
Oh, yeah.
Operation Clambake. Undressing the Church of Scientology since 1996.
And Xenu, by the way, is the name of the
Xenu.
sword.
It's not Zod. Kneel before Zod. That sounds like Scientologist. But that's Superman. It's Xenu.
Yeah, so there's a lot of
X.
A lot of interesting stuff out there. Not with a Z. That would be ridiculous.
No, no alien would spell Xenu with a Z.
Yes, that is true. That is true. All right, so I think that's a pretty thorough discussion on cults, which again, as Josh brings up, is kind of a difficult subject to cover because cults are by necessity all varied. They're very different in the way that they function. They do kind of have those 5 points that you brought up in common. The keeping a population isolated, completely changing their environment, and manipulating their thinking, their thought process, and their beliefs. And
that's what you have to do. You have to create an us versus them, and you have to geographically separate people enough that they, are reminded, I'm an us, not a them.
Yeah.
So church every week or a few times a week, that does it pretty well. But if you have some crazy ideas, you probably need to get a ranch in New Mexico.
Yeah, the more...
Or Waco, Texas.
The more insane your ideas, the more you have to keep your population isolated. You get to a point where you just can't leave the compound. Yes, we're calling it a compound. It's a farmhouse. No, it's a compound.
And the Christian ones are good for that because they get to talk about how it's Revelation, it's the end of the world. We're the chosen people, and those people are all the people that worship the beast. And that's why we have to have automatic weapons.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so we're going to move forward here. We're going to move on to You're Wrong, and Let Me Tell You Why.
Indeed.
And this week's topic for You're Wrong, and Let Me Tell You Why is another jewel that we garnered from
Conservapedia.
Conservapedia.com.
The wealth of brilliance that is Conservapedia.
Yes, and I think, the argument that we did last week was from Conservapedia, but I think that this argument we're doing...
It's a higher caliber.
This is a very important issue for our time, in the tribulation that we're in now.
Oh, yes, of course.
So, and then after this, then there's the guy with the 3 heads and the leg of bronze and whatever. But for now, the topic is an argument, we swear to God, that comes from Conservapedia.com. The topic is cats are just useless dogs.
Okay.
So
Paul, would you like the, well, of course, heads would be the affirmative.
Yes.
And I've got my trusty coin here, quarter. Heads will be the affirmative, and do you want the coin, or you want me to take it?
I will take the coin in spite of the fact that every time I do that, it screws me.
Okay, well, that's clear statistical evidence. Yeah. Obviously, it's, that must be true. And it is heads.
All right, so I get to make the obvious, clear point that cats are simply useless dogs. Now, I will start off with, I think, the most prescient example, which is you don't necessarily see a lot of seeing eye cats, for example, in the utility of dogs. Now, dogs have plenty of uses in society, both modern and in the past. I mean, they pull sleighs. Another aspect of dogs and their utility is that they do make you take them outside to walk them, which gives you fresh air, gives you exercise. It makes you a better human being, a better person, allows you to perhaps, lose some weight, be generally more fit and more healthy. Dogs also look upon their human masters as if they were complete and total gods. And that's positively reinforcing and feels good. Whereas cats, for example, as much as you like to delude yourself about it, do not give a shit about you in any way, shape, or form, except when it's time for them to get mad because you haven't fed them yet. So cats just basically serve no function, serve no purpose, no utility in society, just kind of lie around and do nothing, eat your food, shit in a box and make you clean it out, and and shed all over the place.
Well, that does seem to be pretty airtight, as long as you consider the usefulness of a living creature to be your capacity to abuse it for slave labor. So if that's what your usefulness is, so I would fear you in Nazi Germany, my friend. Because, the unemployed, the homeless, the crazy, the sick, babies, the old, you just euthanize them all. That's a horrible perspective. So something simple, economic or cultural utility doesn't show that they're useless. They provide comfort. They provide compassion. These are close, dear friends that many people have. And there are a lot of crazy cat ladies out there. A lot of them. And the only companionship they get is from their cats. And I think that should not be disregarded. No, they're not going to jump at your every whim like a slave or like a robot or something like that. And that's a little disgusting of you to present that as the utility of a living creature whom people love and find companionship in. I'm a little offended. I find that shocking.
Well, in spite of how much I do particularly enjoy your ad hominem attacks, I don't think that you've actually fleshed out any sort of utility for the feline persuasion. In addition, your reference to crazy cat ladies is a mental condition, one that's propagated by useless cats. If it weren't for if there were no cats,
for those crazy cat ladies, if it weren't for the cats of the crazy cat ladies, these poor women would be alone. They'd be solitary. I don't see you going out there and finding crazy cat ladies and giving them human companionship. No, companionship and love from another living being is something that I don't think you can put a price tag on. I think that's a tremendous utility. And in addition, think of all the laps that are warm right now because of cats. Huh? Think about all the people that work in factories that produce cat litter. Huh? Think about all the people that produce those little bags that you put cat litter in. Not the ones that you do carry around for your dog poop. No. Ones you put cat litter in. Cat food manufacturers. What happens to the old scrap garbage food that we have? Sure, we give some to dogs. We also give it to cats. And this employs people and boosts the economy. I think the utility of the cat is perfectly clear in that respect.
I think you've established that the only utility of cats is as really expensive portable heaters. That doesn't really seem to be.
So you're saying portable heaters are completely useless?
I'm saying
that's what you're saying.
Get a blanket, man.
So you're saying the companionship is completely useless. You are anti-companionship. You are a cold, empty man.
I think
if anti-companionship is the thing you're hanging your hat on. I hate the companionship of other living creatures. That's what you're saying.
The pseudo-companionship that you're referencing. Pseudo-companionship because, as I pointed out earlier, cats absolutely and totally do not give a shit about you in any way, shape, or form. And that's pseudo.
Your capacity to read the minds of lesser mammals aside, I don't think you can establish that point.
I think I can. I think I just did. And the point
I think you simply stated it and assumed that people would go along with it. I'm sorry. I think your cat, when they ignore you, they're playing coy to bring out character in you, to make you seek out their attention. It's like playing hard to get. A girl playing hard to get may not want you, or she may want you to put a little work into it. Up your game. Be more compassionate. Be more loving, making you a better person.
Yeah, I don't know if your hard to get analogy with the female persuasion holds true to the absolute complete disdain that cats appear to have for people who don't have food or laps. So, and
they only know how to show affection through a couple of different mechanisms, and you're disregarding those mechanisms of affection. These are not pack animals. They're generally solitary animals that have chosen and have accepted your companionship, and I think that's a special bond that perhaps you don't quite understand. The bond between a single solitary animal and a pack animal like humans. We've brought them into the fold, and they have taught us a tremendous amount. Plus, think of all the fun you have with the red dot. Well, put a red dot on the floor, you watch them, you laugh, that provides humor, happiness. There's a lot of people that make their living off of providing humor, and the cat does it for free, or for a little scrap of food. Is fantastic.
Is one of the ways that cats can show affection by hacking up a hairball on the carpet? Because they seem to be quite skilled at that.
You'd probably be demonizing people that are in such a condition that they can't control their own bowels. Grandpa needs diapers. Let's euthanize him. No, I'm sorry. That's unacceptable. The fact that somebody out there has a physiological condition, which they do because they have to clean themselves with their own tongues. I don't see you cleaning cats. Have to clean themselves with their own tongues.
Not with my tongue.
They end up consuming some of that cat fur. And yes, that's sad. And yes, they have to then throw it up. And that's a hairball, and granted, that's unpleasant. But again, you don't throw Grandpa out because he's lost control of his bowels.
I would throw Grandpa out if he lost control of his bowels and specifically decided to walk in front of the television and crap on the carpet. If that was his plan, which appears to be the cat's plan.
So you're suggesting that folks with dementia, they should just be homeless and killed. That's your problem. Is you hate people with dementia, you hate people with incontinence, while the hatred is overflowing off of you, and you're applying it all to these gentle mammals.
I hate people with dementia, and I hate cats. and that's clear because cats, again, are completely and totally useless. And not only are they useless, I will again bring up the point that they serve as a barrier to proper mental hygiene.
Mental hygiene?
Mental hygiene. I said it.
I don't have a response to mental hygiene. I shall then simply gloss over that and say something along the lines of, mental hygiene is preposterous and a bizarre thing for you to bring up, and I'm confused by your aptitude for just putting words together and assuming they mean things.
Crazy cat lady would be less crazy if she had proper mental hygiene.
Crazy cat lady may be solitary and possibly some sort of wild, insane woman that goes to fairs and snuggles random children that people think are going to be taken away, and she'd be locked in a home, and we'd be paying for her if she's locked in a home for appearing to steal children. So I think that your obvious hatred now for small children that desire affection from grandmotherly figures is also evident. So now we've got that you hate mammals that are not human. I think you hate old people who are incontinent. You hate people with dementia or brain damage, and now you hate children that want affection from grandmotherly figures. You're digging a hole here I'm not sure you can get out of, sir.
Well, I think you've actually completely and totally made my point without realizing it, and I think this argument is pretty much over when you've established that they would take the crazy cat lady who's apparently hugging children at the fair and lock her in a padded room and watch her through a little glass window.
Through the government dole and my tax dollars,
right,
by the way, which is the opposite of economic utility.
And one of the things that they would not do in order to rehabilitate the crazy cat lady would be to give her a cat. So clearly, the government considers cats to have absolutely no utility in positive mental hygiene. And here's the thing. I cannot question the government's methods for rehabilitation. I think they're absolutely and totally correct, and I think my point has been made, that cats are completely useless.
So your argument from authority, and by the way, from the United States government, authority aside, I think we've established that they provide companionship for a great many people, and Crazy Cat Lady may be better off seeking companionship from humans. But if she can't, I think she's better off getting companionship from somewhere. Maybe it's fine, and maybe psychotropic drugs are bad for some people, but if that's what you have, that's what you have to lean on, my friend. And I say the cats provide a therapeutic benefit. They provide compassion, warm laps, and promote the industry of cat care, cat husbandry. Cat husbandry in the form of cat food, kitty litter, and accoutrement. They also provide happiness and joy to people playing with animals. I got to tell you, I think cats are probably, now that I'm thinking about it, more useful than dogs leading around blind people. Why don't the blind people get human beings to lead them around if you're so interested in people avoiding animals and being led around by people?
Well, I think for the argument to hold true, if you were correct, you would see cats in a much wider arena, a much wider utility. For example, I mean, if you're correct about the utility of cats, then they should give pilots in airplanes cats to sit on their lap while they fly. They should be used in any member of Congress should have a cat on their lap. This should be universal. If it's such a benefit to society, then I think clearly we need to spread the cat.
The Federal Aviation Administration and the United States Congress is the extent of your argument from authority. I'm disappointed, sir. What has the Congress got, a 9% approval rating? And the FAA keeps crashing planes. Maybe they wouldn't if they had decided to put cats on pilots' laps. We don't know because of the long history of Christianity demonizing and maligning cats because they thought they were in league with witches. I think the cats have been beaten down by man enough. And I think you, sir, are joining in with the witch hunt that they did in Salem and the witch hunt they did, I think, in the 50s. I think the communists were supposed to have cats. I'm confident that's true. And the Keep-Offer hearings. And you're joining into that same sort of hate and evil propagating. And I think the cats should rise up and kill you. That's what I think. I think you've made that perfectly clear.
You're advocating my murder due to my position on cats.
I am at this point, yes. And I think that is a solid way for me to end my argument. If cats should kill you. And I think that anyone who's listened would agree.
All right. Well, we want to know what you think. So give us an email at reason@wnyatheist.org. So we're at the bottom of another episode of Reason here. We have about 3 minutes left. One of the things that I wanted to mention before we head off for the week is, so we're going to get a little NPR-ish on you here. We're planning this year on doing a lot of new things with the show. We're in the development stages of a new show, which we're probably going to air on Wednesday evening. It's going to be completely different, like Monty Python. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that we're going to ask is, if you enjoy the show, if you enjoy any of our past shows, go to WNYAtheist.org. There's a donate button there. If you like the show, donate $1 or $2 if you can, if you're able to. It's through PayPal. It's real quick and real easy. And we hope with the amount of donations we can get, we can put that money into furthering the show, creating some new shows, and also creating some videos and having some stuff on YouTube and all the fun different things that we can do if we weren't so damn poor. Mm-hmm. So, just think of us, $1 or $2 would help us out a lot if you can. And so that's our little NPR speech there. Now, next week, we are going to be talking about the planet Mercury.
Yes, Mercury.
A fair number of interesting facts about the planet Mercury.
It's part one of our 10,698,287,218 part series, Planets.
Yes. And by the time we get to the end of all of those episodes, there's probably going to be even more planets. So we might be setting ourselves up for a series that must go on in perpetuity through our deaths and reincarnations, and through Revelation and all of the tribulation that's going to happen and all of that stuff. So it'll be an ongoing series. So if you have any questions, comments, or thoughts on any of the things we talked about today, you can give us an email at reason@WNYAtheist.org. If you have anything to say about the Cult Awareness Network or California girls, or what's going on in Cheektowaga, or whether or not diet soda makes you miserable and depressed. It makes me miserable and depressed because I think it tastes like shit. Or cults or cats and dogs in general. So, we're always interested to get the email. So, again, it's WNYAtheist.org. It's the website. The email address is reason@WNYAtheist.org. Check out the website. Donate $1 or $2 if you can. Check out our blog, The Offensive Atheists. And I think that's pretty much everything. So we got a minute to spare.
Well done, sir. I think we owe ourselves a round of applause. But don't do it because it'll take the minute.
Yeah, it would. When I clap, you can't stop.
90-second clapper at least.
Yeah, I do the slow clap sometimes I do the fast clap. This is all very important.
Well said, sir. Well said.
All right. So until next week, farewell.
Sayonara.
Bye.